4-hour candles, so if those go out, I know something is amiss. There's like an actual overhead light in this room, but it feels more in the spirit to not use it, right? So I just saw WALL-E on a plane, and I want to talk about it. I want to be clear, this is not my first time seeing the movie WALL-E. I had it on DVD, and it was one of those movies that I watched a lot. Next to Bug's Life, which we owned the Spanish DVD copy of, because a lot of our Pixar films we got as gifts from, Spanish side of the family. And so the Spanish title for Bug's Life is Bichos, which I just think is very fun because it just means bugs. But it's been a very long time since I had seen WALL-E. And I will be the first to admit that a plane is not exactly an ideal location to watch a movie, especially when it gives you that little overview at the beginning that says this has been modified from its original format. That's not a good sign. But WALL-E is one of those that people hold up as like the epitome of Pixar, right? Like right up there with Up there. And I really see that as a golden age too, right? It was Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up. That's like hit after hit, But I also have like a weird canon in my head for what's actually Pixar. I think Pixar, the studio, in my mind, is bookmarked between Toy Story and Toy Story 3, and everything after Toy Story 3 is like, yeah, Pixar. It's Disney Pixar. Like, I haven't seen it since it was in the theaters, but it was hard to watch Brave and not think it was like a test run for 3D princess stories. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention too is that in watching it on a plane, I didn't get all of the audio for sort of 3 reasons. One being like, I just put away my headphones at inopportune times, but the movie was still playing, so I just still watched it. And also there were messages from like the captain at inopportune times, but the movie was still playing, which makes it very nice that WALL-E is a movie that is sort of largely nonverbal, to the degree that even the folks who do speak, it's so clear that what they are feeling, and their actions are also quite clear. It's just also a solid point in that movie. So I want to start with the tone, because tonally WALL-E is just one of the best films. It is such a clear characterization, and the characterization of WALL-E so neatly describes the tone of the whole of the film. There's a whimsy to it that is just unparalleled. It also feels very, very homey. One thing that I love about WALL-E as a character is that he doesn't feel alien in the post-apocalypse, and we, as a consequence of that, are made to not feel alien in the post-apocalypse. It is made to feel like home. Things are recontextualized, sure, such as the garbage can as the little Hello Dolly hat. It's Hello Dolly, right? Or the bras, the goggles, and things are humor is derived from this recontextualization, but it's not laughing at so much as it is building sympathy with. We get where WALL-E is coming from, and that's a fantastic thing. But I was surprised that there was this muddledness between 2 of the sort of main themes of the movie, this environmentalist theme and this consumerist theme. And I don't know, I was surprised about that muddledness, because usually that's not sort of a tonal conflict that comes into play. Those seem very well interconnected. But what surprised me is the Axiom, the ship, seems to be like actually a post-scarcity society. But it's a post-scarcity society, and it feels weird how happy everyone on the ship seems, and everything that is supposed to be wrong, we only know it's wrong sort of metatextually. We only sort of know that these are cultural things that we have been socialized to say are bad, even though the film doesn't really show it as bad. It never shows these people as like truly unhappy, just not as happy as they could be. like when Wally like breaks the chair of one lady, and she seems to be having a perfectly nice conversation beforehand. She isn't like rude about anything. She instead is just surprised that there's a pool, and then later on has a nice day at the pool in a way that she wouldn't otherwise. But the interaction through screens, them being fat, their quickness in changing their clothes from red to blue is portrayed as vapid, without sort of explaining why that's bad. And I'm running 2 YouTube channels where sort of the core premises are critical analyses of media. Check out Let's Play over at Let's Play Games links. That doesn't mean that, like, I think being, I would say probably as the movie would put it, vapid is in itself bad. I don't think enjoying yourself in that way is bad, because it doesn't really show how that's bad. It doesn't show the way that might be harming other people, because everyone seems happy. There's no like lack of things. This ship kind of seems like a utopia, and in that way it actually really reminded me of Brave New World. Was that Aldous Huxley? Was Aldous Huxley the biologist? One second. They were related. Yeah, Brave New World was Aldous Huxley. The biologist Huxley was Thomas Henry Huxley, also known as T.H. Huxley. They were related. Thomas Huxley was a big early proponent of Darwin's theory of evolution. Fun fact. The author Huxley came later, I believe. Brave New World is also a book that I consider to be like one of the few true dystopias. So there's a lot of dystopias where like the world sucks and people don't like the position they're in, and that is shown as dystopic. Even though I think it's much more interesting the definition of dystopia that says people think it is utopic. It is a utopa. It is a utopia, but there is something else about the world that is like flawed or bad. And the thing about Brave New World that I really like is that pretty much everyone in the world is happy. There is a very strict, enforced social hierarchy determined by birth, but the people within that hierarchy are happy, and the people who question that have Iceland. They are given Iceland to go off to. And almost everyone in the book is happy with that arrangement of just getting to go to Iceland and having Iceland for themselves. Essentially, everyone in Brave New World is happy, but it still ought to be taken as a dystopic tale, because even though the people inside of it perceive it as a utopia, the people outside of it can see the ways it you know, at least on its face, feels morally wrong. And like, I can argue why, but I don't think people need me to explain why Brave New World isn't a world we want to live in. Hopefully. I don't know. If you want to debate rationally, see me in the comments. But similar to that, I was saying how this is trying to tell us that something is wrong without showing us the things that are wrong, only sort of metatextually and socially showing us the things that are wrong. And part of this is part of what baffled me, is that the introduction to these hover chairs is in the ads for these spaceships saying, hey, even grandma can come along, and like, you know, you don't, this is thought of as a mobility aid and sort of shown to be a mobility aid primarily, and then secondarily used by everyone else. And that being shown as bad didn't really jive well with me because I would rather think about the accessibility of few and like that it brought that up as sort of like the rationale and the reasoning just seemed really strange to me. Because the movie seems a lot more Luddite than I remember it being. So the Luddites were around the Industrial Revolution when like what we can think of as like machines started happening. The Luddites were a group who trashed machines, and in pop culture since have been shown as to be called a Luddite then means to be someone who does not like technology, who has a distrust of technology, real Black Mirror-y. But this seems really strange, right? Because our protagonists are robots. All but 3 recurring characters are robots. I guess the babies are recurring characters, but I don't think they count. But then that got me thinking about like the actual historical Luddites, which did not just have a distrust of technology, they were destroying these machines because it was the capitalists who were gaining the capital from the machine, and taking away their chances at using labor to accrue wealth and like feed their families. These weren't, people scared of the witchy technologies. These were people who were seeing that sort of promises of automation were not helping them. Which seems like a weird position for a movie to take when it then shows you the ways which the automation does make everyone happy. Like, I don't know, if it didn't show people like talking to each other and seeming to have like friends and relationships, I might feel differently. But the first thing we see with the screens, the joke of it is that these are 2 people hovering right next to each other using the screens to talk to each other instead of just talking face to face. Old man yells at Cloud. But they are clearly friends because they're talking about like doing things and doing things again, and they clearly have a past and a history with each other. And I don't know, the society feels a lot less like individualistic than I would feel right criticizing it for. Like I would feel better like condemning this society if they felt more individualistic. But this actually then brought me to a what I think is maybe a better understanding of its environmentalist themes, right? Because it views its environmentalism then a lot less transactionally. If all of our needs are already filled, if there does not seem to be a social hierarchy in the ship, because all needs are already spontaneously filled, it's not like blue, the new blue colors being sold at a premium. It is not like even the characters who disconnect from their chair and lose the color blue are ostracized at all. Every need is met, and yet even then the movie argues it is good to be environmentally conscious, to think of yourself as not someone who needs nature and animals and plants and all of the things that we risk destroying every single day in order for us to live or even to thrive, but that we need to be stewards. It's this sense of good for the sake of good, which if you've seen my video on Sailor Moon, you know I'm head over heels for. WALL-E is really powerful because the society, even this one born out of monopoly and corporation, so much so that it is CEO of the world by and large. Still, everything is good after that. Life is good. People live and live happy, seemingly fulfilling lives. But there is, on top of that, a separate responsibility that we have to everything we could potentially sort of control, everything we have power over. In this case, that being the environment, our planet. We currently hold power over how our planet will go, and that makes it our responsibility to do the right thing, to be cool about that. But, you know, a conflict that I still have is, do I think this movie delivered its message well? Like, there's this fantastic part where the captain of the ship, like, decides that they have to go back, even though he could just go back to sleep and wake up and everything would be the same and fine. He seems like he was having a good time at all of it. But he decides to go back, and that the people on the ship have to do something about it and be active about it. Not because something on the ship is actually threatened, but because it is the right thing to do. It is intrinsically the right thing to do. It is not tying environmentalism to the same kind of consumerism and transactional behavior that the movie condemns by showing usual consumerist tropes and archetypes and with all the monopolizing. And yet, as a kid growing up watching this, I got that it was an environmentalist message. I mean, this is a movie that starts with the robot having the big green flashy badge and there's only one plant left, and that's, is it even a MacGuffin if it's like thematically important that it is the thing that it is? Is because it functions in almost the exact same way as a MacGuffin, but in a sense the MacGuffin is less the plant itself, because it is important that it is a plant thematically, in a way that, like, the Maltese Falcon, the only reason that it's important that it's the Maltese Falcon is that the movie's called the Maltese Falcon. It could be any object, but the plant, it's important that it's a plant because it's a plant. Is it a MacGuffin? Regardless of its MacGuffin status, as a kid watching the movie, I get that it's environmentalist, and I get that it's sort of against capitalist consumer culture, but I didn't see the weird odds of the post-scarcity-ness. I didn't understand the environmentalist theme as perhaps even better than a lot because of its non-transactional nature. And so, does that mean it got its point across? If I still understood generally that it was the broad topics that it is? Or is it not good because in first viewing it so many years later, I understood sort of the weird tangle of, at least on the face, the tangle of the post-scarcity society. And then only after trying to untangle that, getting to the deeper nugget of the non-transactional nature of environmentalism as this movie wants it to be enacted. But then again, is it good for you to have to try to do that untangling to get to that message? and I'm sure I'm thinking about this too hard, because I'm sure most people are at sort of step one of, oh yes, I see that this is environmentalist and anti-consumerist and, you know, trying to show that a monopoly will lead to environmental collapse. You know, when I was much younger and people were sort of, I'll say mildly, uh, uh, somewhere between miffed and freaking out that the website Amazon appeared higher up in Google than the rainforest to the Amazon. I remember being like, come on, like, we know what Google is for. It's not for finding the rainforest Amazon. You're probably trying to get to that. Probably trying to get to the website so you can buy, at the time, like the first Kindle or whatever. But I don't know. Wally makes me think different. Holla at your boy what you think about MacGuffins and metatextuality and Wally. I have work tomorrow. I'm gonna go sleep. Good night.